Sure, all of these things. With Geist of St. Traft, Grim Lavamancer, and Delver of Secrets as the main win conditions, whereas David Fleischmann-Rose is on Ad Nauseam Tendrils.
A-N-T.
Yep, the Storm deck, not of the moment actually. People are much preferring the Training Wheels of Tin Fins, as I've heard some Storm players say that you know, it's a little bit of cheating, I suppose, as if playing 20 spells in a turn isn't cheating already, to be drawing your entire library. So
it's always kind of funny when
back to the traditional
when a Storm player would be like, "Oh, that's a cheating way to win."
Sure, I would. Yeah, I think that might be a minority opinion. I just heard it a couple times, and so he's back to the more traditional Ad Nauseam Tendrils list. This one is with Silence in the main deck, and so is that that would be Tess actually. That would be the Epic Storm.
Yeah.
As opposed to Ad Nauseam Tendrils, but they're very similar, and so it doesn't really matter one way or the other. David Fleischmann-Rose's non-blue and black spells, as Ad Nauseam Tendrils is typically a blue-black deck that nowadays always has a Past in Flames. The Epic Storm, the difference being that it has some non-Grixis spells in it, and he's choosing to run Silence.
One of the really fun cards in the sideboard, you see this about maybe, I'd say, 30%, 40% of the time, Xantid Swarms in the sideboard.
Right.
Such a cool little creature. Neat that it's seeing play. I know when it was first printed, a lot of people thought it was not that great of a card.
Right. Well, now that you have, it's a good stopgap measure for anti-sideboard technology, and he'll probably be bringing those in, although not necessarily, because Benjamin does have Daze, Spell Pierce, Force of Will, all in the main deck, but he does also have Grim Lavamancers and Lightning Bolts to be able to take care of an 0-1.
For those of you who are just joining us, this is round 8 of 9 in this Legacy Open event. 268 players. I'm Adrian Sullivan here with Ruben Bressler. We're seeing David Fleischmann-Rose start out with a Gemstone Mine and a Duress.
Yep, and Ben will probably know what's going on if he sees Gemstone Mine into Duress. Ben Green has 2 lands, it looks like, although I'm not exactly sure what the altered card was. Yeah. We have Stifle, Geist of St. Traft, Daze.
Is that a Tundra
Ponder.
there?
That is a Tundra.
Altered Tundra, I mean.
Oh. I believe so, yes. So that is 2 Tundras. Stifle, Geist, Daze, Lightning Bolt. Is that a Lightning Bolt? No, that's a Grim Lavamancer, I apologize. And a Spell Pierce.
Good eye, good eye. Takes out the Stifle. Stifle, of course, able to stop Storm from triggering.
Yep. Ben top decks Lightning Bolt. That was just a turn late. He plays Tundra and passes. David Fleischmann-Rose has a fairly traditional looking Storm list with the 1 Past in Flames, the 1 Ad Nauseam, and the 1 Tendrils. Not a whole lot of secrets.
Yep.
There. So
for
it looks
the
like
Delver of Secrets trying to find them.
And Delver of Secrets does enter the battlefield for Ben. He chooses to not use Ponder yet to set up the Delver.
Delver of Secrets was such a powerful card in Standard for a while, and in a format with cards like Brainstorm and Ponder, even more powerful than it already was in Standard.
Absolutely, and you think about the fetch lands with the ability to redraw, especially in concert with Brainstorm, one of the key interactions in all of Legacy, let alone that deck.
Ben Green lays a 3rd land here, a Flooded Strand.
And he's going to immediately go fetch out what is probably red mana to be able to cast his Grim Lavamancer. Benjamin Green also has 1 main deck Vendilion Click as a way to combat David Fleischmann-Rose's Tendrils of Agony.
Now he's got a very solid package to try to fight against this. Aside from the fact the very cheap effective counterspells, Force of Will and Daze, which are free, Spell Pierce, which is incredibly cheap, and Stifle, which is cheap, versatile, and potentially effective in stopping David from going off when he's already done all the work, he also has a fast clock. This is a kind of traditional aggro control idea. Put the clock in play, and then once you've got it in play, just ride it to victory. You might not have any cards left at the end of the game, but they're dead.
Yep. Now, Ben decided to tap out there for Geist of St. Traff, not living in fear anymore of trying to spell pierce anything. David did miss his second land drop.
This does mean that David is on a 3-turn clock, and that is a rough one for David. No
Just
play.
Passing the turn, yeah. These aggro control kind of decks that put a clock into play as quickly as possible, deal as much damage before they're dead, and picking things off with Daze and Spell Pierce and conditional counter spells like that have sort of fallen off in recent months. Rug Delver used to be the most popular deck. I know last summer, pretty much, I don't know, something like 30% of the top tables would always be Rug Delver. They were just all over the place. They would win like a quarter of the opens. They would be all over the top 8. You'd always see 2 or 3 copies in the top 8. They've really fallen off the radar recently.
I blame one card.
Yeah?
Abrupt Decay. It's really hard, and for that matter, the ability to have Supreme Verdict, the availability of Terminus in the Miracles deck. It's very hard to be an aggro control deck if the opponents are very easily able to knock out your whole clock.
Yeah, and especially with Rug Delver, a deck that is very dependent on the graveyard, access to new cards, Rest in Peace and Deathrite Shaman have also put the hurt on, because it's tough to get Nimble Mongoose up to big honkin' mongoose size when your Deathrite Shaman is able to be online pretty much the whole time.
David Fleischmann, it looks like he's doing some counting. Now that's either a nice bluff or the sign that he's getting ready to go off.
Yeah, I think that he doesn't have much choice except for to try to go off here. We'll take a look at what Ben's lands situation is, but I think he's got the 1 up. Yeah, he's got the 1 blue mana up for Spell Pierce. He also has any number of islands in play for the Daze, all of which David knows. But now he has land number 2. But with such a fast clock on the board, 6 damage definitely coming from Geist, at least 2, possibly 6 more from Delver of Secrets, and another 2 from Gurm Lavamancer. He's got to put the foot on the gas and hope to be able to do it.
David,
or not.
He's like, well, I'm going to give you this one last turn. Swords to Plowshares flips over, makes it 3, 6, 12 damage just from the attacking, 13 if the Grim Lavamancer gets in. That's more than enough.
Yep. And David decided he didn't have enough even if he was wanted to, and so he decided to try and chance it, take a gamble with the top of Ben's library, but he lost the instant and sorcery lottery to the Delver of Secrets there.
Cards that can come in from Benjamin Green, I think he's just going to further advance his position as the aggro control deck against a combo deck. That means he'd bring in Force of Will, Spell Pierce, Vendilion Click, and potentially that 4th Geist of St. Traff.
Yeah, those are all singletons in Benjamin's deck, and he would definitely be taking out the 4 Swords to Plowshares at least.
And the Swords to Plowshares is the first thing to go. I think after that, he would probably tap into his Grim Lavamancers as a fairly weak clock, expensive to get any damage in. And I think after that, if he feels like it, he can touch into more wacky choices. Wacky choices being cards like Rest in Peace, which is not effective against some versions of Storm, but against a deck that might Past in Flames can be very effective.
Yeah, the new versions, pretty much all of the new versions of Storm rely on the graveyard in one way or another, be it Tin Fins with Reanimate or Ad Nauseam Tendrils in the Epic Storm, both of which have pretty much universally adopted Past in Flames as a way to continue their Storm count. Now, they don't necessarily need...
Right, it's kind of a marginal... Not a marginal, it's a
corner case.
It's a corner hit.
Yeah. Rest in Peace, Tormod's Crypt, Grafdigger's Cage are all 1-ofs in Benjamin Green's sideboard. None of them are particularly good. I wouldn't bring them in.
Yeah. On the other side of the equation, David Fleischmann, he does have Xantid Swarm to be able to get the way clear, and unfortunately his opponent is a creature deck, so attacking with a Xantid Swarm is usually going to be a slightly rougher proposition. But he does have what we talked about earlier, Abrupt Decay, as a means to fight all kinds of cards, but it can be a way to chop off the wings of a flipped Delver without having to fear for anything going wrong.
Abrupt Decay usually comes in to be able to deal with Counterbalance.
Right, of course.
Which Benjamin doesn't have, but David doesn't know Ben doesn't have, because oftentimes these decks will have them in the sideboard as a way to stop combo decks. And with the popularity of combo recently, that's certainly a possibility.
Well, Abrupt Decay can kill any of those cheap, anti-combo cards.
Yes.
I think one of the reasons I'm kind of looking at this, we haven't really seen the kind of aggro-control-y deck in a while. Xantid Swarm is very good against those control elements, those counter spells, but he doesn't really have any other way to interact with the fast clock, so the problem that comes with that thing I was just saying is, of course, he's just faster being a combo deck himself than slowing himself down with an Abrupt Decay.
Yeah, I agree. I think that you start taking out pieces. This is one of the big problems of being a combo deck, is once you start taking out pieces of your combo deck for sideboard hate,
you stop being the combo deck.
Exactly. And so if you're replacing your silences with Xantid Swarms, for example, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
there's not a whole lot of stuff that you can cut to get Xantid Swarms.
I think Gitaxian Probe might be one of the only things he can wiggle with.
Yeah.
Because that 2 life can sometimes just be too much.
David Fleischmann is running the full 4 Gitaxian Probes. I would imagine that no more than 4 cards come in any one matchup.
And a whole ton of his sideboard is Burning Wish targets, which generally speaking won't come in anyway, so it can stay in the sideboard. About the only time you bring in a Burning Wish target is if you don't think you'll have time to tutor for it, and it's going to be useful for you in the first place. And looking at his sideboard cards, Empty the Warrens, probably better on the board. Tendrils of Agony, probably better on the board. Pyroclasm might actually be reasonable to board in, because there might not simply be time to Burning Wish for Pyroclasm, yet just drawing it off the top could be useful.
Well, I think that certainly more against Ben's deck than the traditional Rug Delver decks. Pyroclasm is a better option, just for the sole fact that Geist costs 3 mana. And that's his fastest clock, assuming he doesn't blind flip a Delver on turn 1. But even with a Delver, Pyroclasm is quite the good choice. That's the main reason why I don't think Abrupt Decay is going to come in.
Right. He can't hit Geist of St. Traff.
He can't hit Geist of St. Traff.
Yep.
I think that Xantid Swarm would be probably the only really good choice for David. Although casting it and then meeting a flashed-in Vendilion Click would be quite an awkward situation.
I actually do like bringing in the Pyroclasm. Spending 4 mana to get a Pyroclasm off seems unlikely against Ben Green, but just randomly drawing it, that seems like that would be fine almost all the time.
That's fair, yeah. Burning Wish for Pyroclasm much better against the graveyard, or against the combo hate creatures like Gadokti,
yes,
Thalia, and either Sworn Canonist.
Yeah.
Even if it takes a turn or 2 to be able to actually
you're still going to have the time.
Exactly. And so, yeah, having the one of random Pyroclasm, and he does have many ways to find it. He has
Infernal Tutor at Hellbent.
He has Infernal Tutor at Hellbent, which hopefully wouldn't have to be used to find a Pyroclasm, but could be. He also has Ponder and Brainstorm.
If you're just joining us, I'm Adrian Sullivan here with Ruben Bressler. This is the StarCityGames.com Open Series here in Washington, D.C. It's the 8th round of the Swiss, and it has been a long weekend of Magic. We started broadcasting yesterday morning at 10 a.m., went until 11 p.m., giving you about 13 hours, and we started this morning around 8 a.m., so it's been a good long day, and I hope you've been enjoying Magic all weekend with us.
Yeah, absolutely, and this is one of the, and we're even still finding new things to put on camera, so we haven't had Ad Nauseam Tendrils yet this weekend. We have, however, seen Blue-Red Delver, but what we haven't seen is Grim Lavamancer in this deck, I don't believe. I think the time we had it on camera, we had a version that had Step Links.
Yeah, and that deck was Ed...
that would be Ed Womble.
Yes, Ed Womple, who came very close to winning with his Vapor Snag-based red-blue-white Delver deck.
Yeah, Vapor Snags instead of Swords to Plowshares.
The wheels kind of came off on him in Game 3 when Lingering Souls clogged up the board long enough for his Esper Stoneblade opponent to take control.
We just saw Jim Davis wander by in the background behind Ben Green.
Jim Davis, the Goblin Master.
That's right, Goblin Master had a wonderful article on SCG this week called One Word, which was, I would definitely suggest it. You should all go read it. I liked it a lot.
For people out there, what day did that go up?
Thursday, I believe. Could have been Wednesday. I think that's on the free side as well, though, so
cool.
Certainly go check it out. So I think Ben is on the mulligan down to 5 here.
Always rough.
Yeah, not exactly where you want to be when you're trying to be the tempo player, when you need disruption and creatures.
This is one of the critiques against aggro control as a archetype. For the deck to work, usually you have to go clock, then control elements.
Yep.
And those control elements coming first and the clock later, your deck didn't work.
So David Fleischmann goes turn 1 Brainstorm. He found an Lion's Eye Diamond and a Xantid Swarm, among other cards in that Brainstorm. Using it a lot like a ponder there, just to sort of sculpt his hand, see where he's at. Try and plan for the late game. Some players might have waited on that, but he wanted to get it out of the way right away, so that things like Wasteland, Stifle, Daze didn't have any way to interact with them there.
Gitaxian Probe. Let's see what you got, Ben Green. Are you going to let us see?
He certainly is. We have Fetch Land, Lightning Bolt, Force of Will, Spell Pierce. So no clock for Ben.
Not where he wants to be. He still can stop David from going off immediately, and he can get rid of a Xantid Swarm should David drop one. But Ben really needs a clock for his deck to actually be functioning.
Yeah, but when you mulligan to 5,
you take what you can get.
Yeah, exactly. You take what you can get. David finds his Ad Nauseam on top of his library.
Now remember,
deciding how he's going to proceed here.
This is the second turn. Gitaxian Probe on turn 2 for putting him to 18 life. We know that he brainstormed, so he has already seen those top cards.
Yes.
I think there's a discussion about the nature of the dirt on Ben Green's sleeves.
That's right. Oh, the spotter. We've lost connection with our coverage laptop is the problem. So David's hand includes Xantid Swarm, and he didn't cast it there, which I find a little bit weird. I mean, I haven't played enough Ad Nauseam Tendrils. You'd have to figure out. You'd have to ask someone who knows much more about Storm than I do. You'd be better off with Adam Prozac in the booth, for example. But why would you not play Xantid Swarm there off of your Gemstone Mine?
Well, I mean, he knows that there's the Lightning Bolt in play, but that's always going to be there.
Yeah.
Gosh. I guess, again, I would want to speak to an expert like Adam Prozac, but he might want to be in a position where he puts down 2 at once.
Okay. Try and choke Ben on mana just in case. So here's a Brainstorm from David Fleischmann-Rose, trying to dig for land number 2. Finds Lotus Petal, Duress, and Silence. So does not find it. Brainstorm locking himself into the library again.
It's always one of the most frustrating feelings when you cast Brainstorm, see nothing that you want to use, and nothing to shuffle with.
Yeah, but David isn't facing down any clock of any sort yet.
That can change very quickly.
Oh, absolutely.
We see a Volcanic Island come into play for Ben Green.
Yeah, the awkward thing for Ben is that he's only going to have this one land to work off of, assuming he draws a threat. So if he draws Geist, it's kind of useless. But if he draws Delver, then there you go. Delver's pretty much the perfect card.
No, he does not go for that, though.
He wants to keep up the Lightning Bolt mana, it would seem, just in case David Fleischmann-Rose goes for Ad Nauseam here.
And Spell Pierce as well. Duress to start out with. Ben Green looks like he's going to Spell Pierce that Duress. There it is.
Trying to keep those Lightning Bolts in hand. Keeping David at a effective 12 life, just in case Ad Nauseam happens. Another Force of Will for Ben Green.
Ben might drop the Delver now that he doesn't have to hold up for Spell Pierce.
Right, and it's possibly kept the Delver to remove to the Force
of
also,
Will, yeah, absolutely.
so that he could have both Spell Pierce and Force of Will just in case. There's the Delver of Secrets. David still looking for land number 2, unable to find it. Also, interesting to note, perhaps not so interesting for David, is that he's only got 1 activation of that Gemstone Mine left.
It's running out of time. The clock has finally appeared. Currently an 18 turn clock, could turn into a much shorter clock very, very easily.
Well, David knows that Ben has the multiple lightning bolts in hand.
Lays a Lotus Petal, says go.
Lays the Lotus Petal so he doesn't have to discard. Doesn't look like it's going to be a spell.
Ben looks at the top with Delver, does not reveal it, and decides to shuffle it away.
Before his draw step.
I think we're going to see a second Volcanic Island.
Yep,
Maybe he'll go for the Tundra for the 2 colors, but...
well, he only really needs the white mana for Swords to Plowshares and for Geist of St. Trapp.
I just saw him skip past that first Tundra, so I thought he was going to keep going for a Volcanic.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a close choice. I mean, without Swords in the deck anymore, the only thing he has that's white is the 3 Geist of St. Trapp, assuming he didn't bring in anything like Rest in Peace. But having the extra colors, it just guarantees that any land he draws, even if it's a wasteland, will help him cast Geist. Ben does, however, draw Ponder.
In for 1.
And there is Ponder. 3 Moon Ponder.
It's my favorite Ponder.
It's a land, and an Engineered Explosives, and a Tormod's Crypt.
So now, the Engineered Explosives here, that can blow up all of the zeros. Now, a 0 would be a flipped Delver of Secrets Insectile Aberration, but it can also be a Lotus Petal or a Lion's Eye Diamond.
Or 18 Goblin tokens.
For example.
So he's going to keep them.
Stifle, is that a part of that
That was the
too?
3rd one, was Stifle, yep.
Nice.
So he's got Force of Will Stifle up now. Still locked into his deck is David Fleischmann. Perhaps out with a whimper.
Wow.
The Ad Nauseam deck is.
Ponder. Cashing it in. Go ahead.
He's going to let the Ponder resolve. Land. Burning Wish. Infernal Tutor. That's a fishy Ponder.
That is a fishy Ponder.
David, I don't think he has a choice but to keep this and take the fetch land, even if he wanted the Burning Wish.
Gets the fetch land.
The danger, of course, being that the fetch land could get stifled.
Yeah, and he knows that Stifle exists in the deck. He saw it earlier in the previous game.
Now, if you're Ben and David activates his fetch land,
it would be tempting. It would be very tempting.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I would either. It would be quite the double bluff if David, like, for example, found a regular land and a fetch land, baited out the Stifle on the fetch land in order to try and go off later on.
And you see a lot of mana in David's hand. I see a Lion's Eye Diamond. I thought I saw a Dark Ritual. I thought I saw a second Lotus Petal.
If he has a second Lotus Petal, he has Dark Ritual in hand, he could go for the Ad Nauseam.
He's thinking.
He does have to be careful, though, because Ben still does have those Lightning Bolts in hand. Ben is going to let the fetch land resolve. Or is he? Oh. So David picked up his deck, assuming...
And Ben's like, hang on a second, buddy.
Yep. So now they're discussing what's going to happen, because you know what happens when you assume is sometimes you're incorrect.
That's about what they say usually.
That's pretty much what they say. So they're discussing whether or not... I think Ben decided that... I think they're still discussing it, But Ben, I think, decided that he was going to let it resolve anyway. I think that I would let it resolve anyway as well, because you'd rather stifle something later on.
You'd rather stifle the actual storm trigger, perhaps?
Yeah, than try and mana screw your opponent. Although with the Delver on board, it becomes more questionable.
One of the things about the stifle there, if you get rid of it in that way, there's no telling if there's not just another land in the mix. And if there is, it feels like a very big waste of a huge weapon in this matchup.
I would agree. The thing here, though, is that David's going to be pretty much all in on trying to get this ad nauseum, right?
I mean, does he have a... I did not see a silence before, I don't believe.
He does have a silence, yes.
Okay. Starts with Rite of Flame.
That's one that was probably in his original hand that I didn't know too much about. So 2 mana, 2 red mana. Storm is
1, I believe.
1, or did he? No, he pondered into.
Oh, ponder. You're correct.
Or no, not this
that
turn.
was last
not this
turn.
That was last turn.
Second Rite of Flame.
Second Rite of Flame. This is going to cost 1, add 3, so this will be 4 red mana. Storm of 2. 5.
Dark Ritual.
Dark Ritual. Storm of 3. 7 mana. I would expect the Lion's Eye Diamond next. Although it's possible he just goes for the ad nauseum before he plays the Lion's Eye Diamond. I'm not sure that I would do that. But, again, Storm is a very awkward deck to try to play. I don't have nearly enough practice with it.
And he keeps shifting the Lion's Eye Diamond between front and back.
He is going to go for the ad nauseum first.
He's got 2 mana left?
He's going to have 2 mana left. My guess is he's going to leave a red and a black in his pool after this ad nauseum. Ben, I believe, is going to fight over this ad nauseum now. Yeah.
Force of Will tosses...
A Force of Will. Force of Will, removing Force of Will. Ben goes to 17. Ad nauseum gets counterspelled. So that's still Storm of 5.
Yep.
I think at this point, David just needs to let it go. Save as much Storm as he can from now on. That's the reason why you don't play Lion's Eye Diamond first.
Says go.
Yep.
He follows your advice. He must have heard you.
That's right.
Ben Green. Is it going to be one of those zeros? Yep, Tormod script. In for 1.
So down to 14 is David Fleischmann-Rose. And Tormod's Crypt for Ben Green is going to shut off any future, not only Past in Flames shenanigans, but also Ad Nauseum shenanigans, as the Ad Nauseum is in his bin now.
Only 1 copy of Ad Nauseum in these lists for the most part. It's a rare deck that has more.
So David Fleischmann-Rose draws and passes.
Boom, the
He
clock
gets bolted at end of turn,
triples.
and there's the clock. So David Fleischmann-Rose down to 11, down to 8 now.
Only 3 turns remain. 2 turns if you know about that extra bolt.
And he indeed
Bolt.
does know about the extra bolt. So David Fleischmann-Rose down to 5 now.
Ponder.
Insectile Aberration brings David down to 2. He's going to dig for a bolt here, see if he finds it. Doesn't look like he did, but he did find
Brainstorm in there.
Brainstorm and Spell Pierce.
It's a pretty good set of cards.
A pair of fine cards, exactly.
A little choked on mana.
But then against those David Fleischmann-Rose,
He puts the Spell Pierce on top, draws the Spell Pierce, passes the turn. David Fleischmann-Rose, he knows he has to win right now.
that's Dark Ritual. I don't think that's going to do it. I think he needed a red mana source of one kind or another in order to even attempt to go for it.
David Fleischmann-Rose on the right, trying to come back after a anemic start against Ben Green. Ben Green just crushed him game 1 in about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
This second game has taken a good 26 minutes. Probably, well, if you take the shuffling out of the equation,
Yeah.
24 minutes. And he says, that's enough, you got me.
Yeah, he was stuck on lands a lot of the time. He didn't really have a chance in either of those games. That matchup is usually a little bit closer, but still favors the Delver deck.